if teams want to use the long throws in Southeast Asia, where maybe the standard is not as high when it comes to marking or defending, sometimes it's not the fine edges or the little things. These little things could become quite significant. As Indonesia, the young Indonesians had shown through Pratama Arhan's long throws. Because without those long throws, could it have been a lot worse for the young Garudas? We never know. When it comes to football competitions, anything that can be used to gain an edge, to get a goal, to get a victory, it is always welcomed upon by the protagonists who utilize it to the fullest. And in this particular topic, what I'm going to touch on is on the long throw-in. The long throw-in, the very long one, not the short one. And before I go into the specifics of its relevance to the current ASEAN Championship, allow me to give a brief introduction to the long throw-in and who popularized it in global football culture. Well, according to Opta, a long throw-in is defined as the moment when the ball, when released from the player's hands during a throw-in, goes more than 20 yards, or in modern metric term, between 18 to 19 meters. So, in this instance, long throws had been used for decades, but it's during the late 2000s and early 2010s that where it was brought to much global attention through the Premier League. Enter Rory Delap. Rory Delap, as a young boy, he was actually a junior javelin champion in his county, but eventually chose football to build his professional sporting career. A competent midfielder who was able to put in the hard tackle and deliver a decent pass, he had actually already begun his long throw-ins as a young budding professional at the lower league clubs where he began his football journey. But it was particularly, I think, from 2008 where his long throw-ins took prominence as Stoke City secured their English top flight promotion through this method. And I mean, I wouldn't go on to elaborate how much damage his throw-ins had caused, because I will touch on that later when it comes to Indonesia wingback Pratama Arhan. So for Rory Delap's case, how his throw-ins became such devastating weapons for Stoke City and create much consternation in the Premier League, particularly on clubs who love to play the game on the ground and who prefer to play the ball out from the back instead of the old school hustle and bustle, heading out or barging, making huge physical contacts, either way, whether it's in defense or in attack. There was a method to madness in Delap's long throw-ins. Given his previous background as a javelin thrower, he was not only able to throw it at length, but to throw it with precision, with power, and also with the spin. And in many of those throw-ins that have now become global football for those who remember those days when long throw-ins were the rage, where people watched Stoke City mainly to watch that, when in general the play was more robust, a throwback to the old 4-4-2, where they focus more on the physicality and the compactness. The throw-ins were a rare delight, a rare highlight. And I think the essence of this throw-in, where in Delap's case, was to throw it long, to throw it in a you can say a lower and a flatter trajectory, that it's akin to delivering a cross, where having such a devastating long-range missile that causes problems to defenders and the goalkeeper, especially when the ball reaches inside the 6-yard box. That's where usually the most lethal or the most vulnerable defensive moments come at that flashpoint. And many established teams who had to deal with this type of set play, they struggle because with that spin, with that power, with that pace, there was a lot of confusion. It was either the defenders had to go for it or the goalkeeper has to go for it. Because if the defenders and the goalkeeper clash onto one another, the other likely outcome was the strikers or the attacking player or the tallest player who got the ball first, either providing the flick on or finishing off that move. And one thing about throw-ins, throw-in is the only set piece in FIFA laws where you can score from an offside position. You can score from offside position, but you cannot score directly from a throw-in. That is the magic, and that's where Delap Stoke really stretched the boundaries in that period. And now I will move on to Pratama Arhan's long throw-ins. Ever since he actually admitted in a local interview that unlike Delap, he had no particular background in athletics, particularly in the few events where throwing, whether it's a javelin or discus or hammer, is essential. The power of your hands. It was a lot through the practice and making sure that he always gets those long throw-ins deep into the most dangerous and vulnerable area inside the penalty box. And as we have seen in these ASEAN Championships, 3 of 4 young Garuda's goals came as a result of those throw-ins. And let's recap those 3 goals that occurred thanks to his long throw-ins from deep. The first one actually came in the opening game in Yangon, where Indonesia played their first Group B match against Myanmar. The only goal of the game came in the second half, where through Pramata's long throw-in from the left, the Myanmar defense was very confused and they were left paralyzed by it, and making a hasty clearance, the loose ball went onto the path of halftime substitute Asnawi Mangkualam, who had no hesitation in smashing the ball into the back of the net on the right side of the box, and actually on the edge of that 6-yard area. Then the two other goals came in Indonesia's trailing 3-3 home draw with Laos, and on both occasions they came in the first half, where Indonesia had to claw back from being a goal down each time to score and to level the scores and to level the proceedings. The first one actually came in the 12th minute, where from a throw-in from the right this time, a long throw-in from the right, the defenders really failed to clear the lines, and the ball eventually reached to Marcelino on the far post, where he actually beat 3 defenders and provided the assist for Khalid Ariel to slot home inside the 6-yard box. And by then the Laotian defense was all over the place. They weren't sure what to do, and they panicked. And again, I think rather in 7 minutes later, I think 6-7 minutes later, they panic again. This time, instead of the right, Pratama Arhan was making that long diagonal throw from the left. Again, diagonal, precise, all straight into the 6-yard box. And this time, the defenders were left rooted as that long ball went all the way to the head of Muhammad Ferrari, who just nodded the ball in at the far post to make it 2-2. So, in essence, what were the main characteristics of Pratama Arhan's long throws that was used to such devastating effect for the young Garudas in this ASEAN Championship? Well, the main essence of it is being it's effective and unfortunately only quality attacking options in a squad where finishing was not its biggest forte and where many of the players on the pitch were inexperienced, raw in the international stage. This ingenuity of having such devastating long throws helped Indonesia to keep afloat in the early stages of the group stage campaign. And like Rory Delap's, Pratama Arhan had similar ideas, using the ball to dry the towel to dry his hand, to dry the ball, to get his grip ready, and a number of steps back, and once he just launches that long ball, unlike Delap's where it's lower and flatter, Pratama Arhan's was like a cannon trajectory, going upwards and dipping when it's near to the zigzag box. And for Myanmar and Laos, they were not prepared for this. They struggled with this set piece throughout, and as a result, what happened was there was plenty of indecisiveness in those defenses because they weren't sure whether they want to clear it away or they want to head it out, or whether they just try to see where they would go next. There was some kind of paralysis in both defenses when it came to dealing with those long throws. And at the same time, because you can say that the Myanmaris and the Laotians were of similar size to the young Indonesians, there was no such thing as a height advantage. So what helped for the young Garudas was their positioning in attack, where they were able to place the players in strategic positions, and that came through a lot of training. It's not just for this ASEAN Championship, but also in previous international tournaments that Pratama was involved in, when those long throws were used with similar devastating effect, not just for the Garudas, but even for his previous club Tokyo Verdy, where he indirectly created assists for Tokyo Verdy to score a goal against, I think, Tamasa Gumpa, pardon my mispronunciation, in a Japanese league or cup game. That was probably last year or the year before. I saw that clip. That long throw came and the defense wasn't ready to cope. The opponents were inadequately flat-footed by it, and that allowed Tokyo Verdy to score from that resulting confusion in that throw, from that throw-in. Similarly, Japan also were victims of this, even though they beat Indonesia 4-1 in the Asian Cup. Again, a long throw. Takumi Minamino, the European-based ex-Liverpool, now Monaco midfielder, make a mistake and was left to Sandy Walsh to set up a goal, the goal that was eventually credited as an own goal by Zion Suzuki in the 2023 Asian Cup that was held earlier this year. So in those throws, you had that high cannon-like trajectory that went in, so the defenses were not prepared. Indonesia had a lot of training, especially those experienced young seniors who had seen this before. Shin Tae-yong knows how to set all the players up at different positions to confuse, to limit the defending team's options, because you push too hard, there might be a penalty, there might be a foul against them, an indirect free kick, or if you're too loose, you leave holes for them to exploit those open positions. And as you could see in the Ferrari second equalizer against Laos, there was plenty of space for Ferrari to hit home, because all the Laotian defenders, all the Laotian players inside their own box were ball watching. They were looking at the trajectory of the throw-in. It of course had to have some power, but there was confusion in how they had to deal with it. And sadly to say, unfortunately, it happened only in the first two Indonesian games in Group B. Against Vietnam, Kim Sang-sik had prepared a counter strategy to deal with this. There was discomfort inside the box. They did struggle a little bit, but because they had a plan, they were able to clear the ball quickly before any Indonesian could do anything with it. So the young Indonesians really had nothing to show for, not even in, save for a brief period in the second half, they had nothing to show for from those long throws. For their final group game where they had to win, they had to at least get a draw to advance. The unfortunate part is that Indonesia once again failed to score. The Philippines heritage players who played in that game in Sukatra, they actually they were bigger than the Indonesians. They were stronger. They were more physical. So that gave them the advantage. So that gave the Ascals the advantage when it comes to defending against those long throws. Yes, predictable by that. They were predictable. And yes, it did give some discomfort again to the Filipinos. But in the end, their size, their experience, maybe they have seen all these long throws, long crosses. They just simply headed away. Even though there were a few occasions where it landed straight to another Indonesian, another red shirt, but by then they had the mobility, they had the pace, the reaction speed to nullify the threat. And obviously as the frustration went on, they weren't able to be as composed to look at the positioning, and the young Indonesians were not as fluid as to work around on how to find a different way to make use of that long throw in, to react and to create more problems for the Philippines defense. So there were limits, but it does give a lot of concern. And unfortunately in this ASEAN Championship, where long throws have been used, only Pratama Arhan has caused a lot of consternation, a lot of worry for the opponent teams. For Laos and Myanmar, they suffered because of it. For Vietnam and the Philippines, they survived partially because for Vietnam's case, they were prepared. For the Philippines, they had that physicality and they were bigger than the Indonesians. At least in Pratama Arhan's long throw-ins, whether it's from either side, they had purpose. They had the intention to cause confusion, to cause distress to the opponents, and to get his teammates into advantageous scoring positions. And these were the main goals. When you look at the other teams that did the long throw-ins, unfortunately, unlike Pratama Arhan's, where it involved a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, a lot of planning, the rest of it, it's really more of throw and hope for the best. It's like throwing buta, blind. They hope that they will just long throw, hoping that okay, the striker is there to hold the ball, or the defender is there to provide a flick on, but there was no concise plan on what they were supposed to be doing. Maybe in training they probably had planned this routine, but it was not trained as rigorously as their matchday tactics and such. Hence, the effectiveness definitely went up because it was thrown long, but it was not with power. It was not with the right trajectory or the right spin. And because of this lack of trajectory and spin, it resulted in those other teams not being able to utilize it as a weapon to the relief of their opponents. It's like, okay, I let you throw, but I know that your throw is not going to be causing my team any problems when we are defending. All we need to do is hack the ball away or pass the ball out of the danger area, and we are all clear. And that's the difference. If teams want to use the long throws in Southeast Asia, where maybe the standard is not as high when it comes to marking or defending, sometimes it's not the fine edges or the little things. these little things could become quite significant. As Indonesia, the young Indonesians had shown through Pratama Arhan's long throws. Because without those long throws, could it have been a lot worse for the young Garudas? We never know. But for many teams who prefer to continue to play the ball on the ground, which is obviously a good thing, to try to play good attacking football, which is also a good thing, it's also crowd pleasing, but having the extra weapon to use mixes things up and it creates different options. It's like, if plan B is Tawata, if plan B is Tawata, maybe even this as a plan C, given that we have practiced maybe in a number of training sessions with, like say, I know that when this is the guy doing the throwing, this is where we are supposed to be, this is where this player is supposed to be positioned, where that player is supposed to be positioned, who is supposed to be at the far post, who is supposed to run in to create problems to block the defender's view. I think that lack of precision in planning for those long throws is pretty telling. Even corner kicks in this ASEAN Championships, I admit they are not of a high quality, and even with slight digression, you do need that precision and the ability to, and having those players who have the size, who have the jumping ability to cause a lot of problems in those set piece situations. And with that, I wrap up this ASEAN Championship special topic on the long throw-ins.